Hey everybody, how's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Good.
So thanks for joining us today. It's a Sunday, so we really appreciate you just volunteering to be here during your Sunday with your families. And so today we wanted to talk about just different perspectives on issues going on about going back to school with COVID here. And so we all have slightly different situations. We're either homeschool or public charter, and Katie's a college student. And I just thought it would be great to talk about some of the issues that we're all having and we're all dealing with, and then just hearing what you have to say, and maybe somebody else has something to add to it that might be helpful. So so I guess the first question I have is, and we can just kind of go around in a circle or in a line, is how has COVID-19 impacted your plans for school this fall? So I don't know, Stacy, do you want to start?
Sure. So my oldest daughter is going into second grade, and she was at public school. And we just moved back to Arizona last year, so this was going to be her second year at this school. And so obviously that has changed. We're not going to be going back to school, at least not immediately. We don't know if or when we'll be able to send her back. And my middle child should have been starting preschool this year, and she will not be starting a preschool. We'll just be doing things from home.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of things what are just one or two of the things that you're thinking about as this whole thing is happening?
Well, it looks like I'll have to be going back to work in early September. And so it'll be difficult for me to kind of maintain that balance between making sure that both kids are getting appropriate, help from me or from their instructor or whomever while I'm at work.
Mm-hmm. So, I just realized that we didn't introduce ourselves. So why don't we just take a minute to do that? And Hannah just joined us. So Hannah, do you want to actually go first?
Oh, sure. I'm Hannah. I live in Seattle. Old, with the emphasis on old, friend of Janice's from back in the day. And I have two kids, 11-year-old and going into 6th grade, and a 13-year-old going into 8th. And they're in the public school system here in Seattle that did a terrible job of the transition to remote learning, and I have absolutely no faith at all that they will have figured it out. So I basically feel like my kids are not in school.
Mm-hmm. Becca, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Becca. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I have two daughters, a second grader and a 4-year-old who was supposed to start preschool this fall, but because of COVID, we're going to be homeschooling her for preschool and then doing school at home for my second grader as well until we feel it's safe for her to go back to the public school that she went to for kindergarten and 1st grade.
Okay, great, thanks. Marianne, you want to go now?
Yeah, I live in California, Silicon Valley. I have 4 kids, aged 14, 12, 10, and 7. And I have been thinking about homeschooling that we alternately, sometimes my kids are in public school and sometimes they're in homeschool. I've never had all 4 in homeschool. I let them choose. Last year, they were all in public school, and I was actually teaching when shelter in place started. So I also got to be the teacher trying to teach online, which was extremely challenging. This fall, I'm splitting. Our school district is fully distance learning because of how COVID is spreading in our area. But my 2 older kids want to do the school distance learning, which I was actually really impressed with our school district. I think they moved mountains to make it work. My younger 2, we're going to homeschool. In large part, like I said, the teachers did a great job, but it is so many Zoom meetings, and you have 6 people in our house. My husband is a college professor, and you have 6 people on Zoom, and it's just a disaster. So, and I'm taking this next year off teaching anyway. So yeah. I'm lucky I can do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. Katie, you go next.
Hi, I'm Katie. I work with Janice doing marketing for Page a Day, and I'm a college student at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, and I'm studying engineering. And just like general how COVID affected that, we were all online since March, and then come the fall, we're going to be hybrid.
Thanks. And Stacy.
So I am in Oro Valley, Arizona, and I have 3 kids, 7-year-old, or actually she's almost 8, going into 2nd grade, an almost 5-year-old who should be starting preschool, and a almost 2-year-old.
Great, thanks. So we kind of got started. Stacy shared with us a little bit, and the question was, how has COVID-19 impacted your plan for school this fall? So Hannah, you want to go next?
Well, I feel like it's so hard to plan, and it's really hard to have the energy to plan, because I run my own business from home, and I've got the kids at home, and there's a new puppy in the house, and my husband is working, and I've got a bar mitzvah coming up. I mean, I don't know where we get the headspace to really sit down and think it through and do the research. And, I have a little bit of envy of my friends who drop $100,000 a year on private schools, because the private schools made really good transitions. They basically kept going, and the public schools just didn't. So, if I did have headspace for it, I think I would be looking to use it as an opportunity to expose them to things that school doesn't expose them to. When I had some time when they were at home during the first go around, we would watch a documentary together in the afternoon. And there's so many wonderful things for them to watch, but they won't watch on their own, because at least my children won't watch on their own. But when we watched, how to live on $1 a day in South America or whatever with them, it was interesting, and it did open their eyes to the world. And so I think if you put your mind to it, you can figure out, although it's a lot of hands-on work, how to keep them stimulated and interested, and writing stuff and all that. I think the hard thing, though, is we can't replace that social experience that they're having. We can't replace how they learn how to navigate relationships, and especially preteens and teens. You have to have that bitchy girl in your class who drives you crazy, and just to learn how to deal with that. So, we do a little bit of distance play dates, but it's all the same children who live around the corner there. So I think the social part is hard to replicate, and the other part is possible to replicate if you have the energy and the mind share to do it. Mm-hmm. And then there's the piece of actually being the person telling them what to do. And depending on the relationship you have with them and the type of family, we're not very strict with our kids. Nobody was strict with me growing up, so I don't think that way. And that's kind of hard when you really actually do need them to do some schoolwork, and you're not that kind of authority figure for them. Mm-hmm. So a long answer, but I haven't really figured it out.
No, but you brought up so many good points. I mean, I'm sure everybody here has thought about each one of those, areas in some way or another. Does anybody want to go next? Any volunteers? Mary?
I connected with what Hannah was saying about just having the energy to and the time to put into teaching your kids yourself. And we are for sure homeschooling our preschooler, because her preschool offered a remote learning program for more than it was going to cost us to send her part-time in person. And so we said, we're not going to spend more for her to be on the computer 5 days a week. So we withdrew her and are going to homeschool her, but just the effort of having to be planned of what we're going to do, and making sure that it's something engaging, because when it's just her and her older sister, it's going to be harder, I think, for her to be consistently excited about it every day. Whereas if she's going to school and seeing friends and just a new setting of school, she naturally would be excited and engaged. So so just the extra effort as parents that we are having to put out to be all of these different roles that the kids had previously filled by other adults, like being the teacher and the coach and the adult support that they got from other adults, is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just even that excitement about going to the school bus or getting in the car to get ready to go, putting your backpack on, getting your lunchbox.
I think the other thing that I think about too is if you think about the length of a day and how much time they actually spend really learning in the class. If a lesson is 30 minutes, the teacher's probably teaching for 10 or 15, but the rest of it is organizing people and getting your books. But when they're at home, there's none of that. And so the learning day for actual content is what, 2 hours? They can't study for more than 2 or 3 hours. And then you've got the rest of the day you've got to fill.
So Marianne, how do you do that?
Marianne, how do you do that?
How do you make it work?
Well, I'm really grateful that I've done this before. I think it does give me a big head start. It's really challenging. I've learned to try and find projects for the kids to work on, and this, often you can pull a little bit of homeschool into the project, like they're learning about the project. So this summer, my kids desperately needed a project because I have 4 kids home all day. And they decided that they wanted to celebrate Comic-Con at home, which we have never had anything to do with Comic-Con. We don't really like, but I was like, okay, a project, we're going to do this. And I gave them a budget and they designed their costumes and they made their costumes. And it was extra work for me, but it was really amazing because it pulled all 4 kids together to be working on stuff. And, even if, I gave them a budget, I took like a portion of what we would have spent on a road trip and spent it on their costumes, but without it, they could have made it, I could have made them do it out of paper bags and cardboard. A lot of what they made was out of cardboard actually. And so that's a big piece, having projects, because projects fill the empty hours. And then the more when my kids homeschool, I have them actively help me choose curriculum, because that gives them more personal responsibility over what they're doing. I do think it's a big adjustment, and I think I happen to have a really flexible job, and like I said, I just decided to quit classroom teaching for a year. I have freelance work I can do that's flexible, and our budget can make that switch, but that's a luxury. And so is the luxury of even things like choosing curriculum. I guess what I have to say to parents is your kids are going to learn as long as you use your libraries and use all the online resources. And I think the more ownership they take of the process, the better.
That's great. That's great advice. Katie,
I do think we have a huge problem, like we aren't addressing the challenges of especially working moms at all as a country. And I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when your kids are working on projects, how old's your youngest?
She's almost 8. She'll start 3rd grade. But I was working from home and homeschooling when she was in kindergarten too. I'll pull my laptop and I'll be like working on some freelance project next to them while they're working on their stuff. I've learned that proximity is really powerful if you need to work while watching your kids. If you can find a way to have some proximity. The other thing I find that works is if I give them some focused attention at the beginning of the day, then they'll kind of run themselves later. If your kids are awesome in the morning, let them play and then give them attention when they start demanding it.
Katie, what about you? How are you feeling about going back to school and staying healthy and the other kids?
I'm really hopeful. My school, they've implemented a bunch of restrictions and changes for when learning will happen in person, but most of it is going to be online. But I'm just really excited because my labs will be in person, and I'm a mechanical engineer, and I really missed being in the workshop and building last semester. But everything's going to be 6 feet apart, masks, and they're using big auditoriums for classes of 20 people. So everyone spread out.
And you said that you're going to be living in your own apartment, I guess.
Yeah, I'm getting my first apartment, and I have 3 other roommates. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
Do you know what's going on with the dorms for your friends? And
yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. Usually they provide dorms for freshmen and sophomores, and it's mandatory to live on campus. but this year they only want to do single occupancy. So they're having freshmen be in the freshman and sophomore dorms, and they're putting sophomores in hotels and apartments and off campus, and also giving them the option to find their own housing. But yeah, I was like, I don't envy the sophomores because I would not want to live in a hotel. But they're trying to make it work.
Well, that's pretty interesting. It's pretty innovative, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Stacy, what about you?
So my job actually is I'm a photographer for preschools. And so basically when this all happened at spring break last season or last semester, I was out of work at the same time that all the schools shut down for distance learning. So it worked that I was home with the kids, could help them, you know, with whatever they needed, which was, you know, really unstructured, but we made it work. But a lot of preschools are opening back up in the early September. And so I will have to be going back to work then. So that will affect how I can help my kids. My husband also works, so they'll be going with my mom, and my mom will be helping them because she's retired. So it's kind of like, you know, I can help when I'm home, but a lot of times my work requires me to be gone overnight. Like I stay in hotels a lot. So it will be kind of a challenge to make sure that she's focused and learning and actually like absorbing the information.
Interesting. I actually wanted to also ask you, all of you, how you're like, what kind of conversations you're having with your kids about going back to school? Like not going back to school, but what do you, like, how do you explain to them? What are you saying to them? And you, again, we have all different age children, but what kind of conversations are going on at home about school?
So for us, it's, you know, they understand because we've been really open about like, you know, this is something that's dangerous, but we're staying home to protect us and other people. So they understand that. And, you know, they'll say things like, I can't wait for the virus to go away so we can still do this or go there, you know, so they kind of understand that we're here for that. And it's not just like just because we have, you know, because we have to, you know, we kind of give them the reason why, and we don't shield, I mean, we shield them from the really bad stuff on the news, but we do allow them to understand what's happening around us, you know, so they know, they're informed.
Mm-hmm. Hannah, how are you? What about you? What kind of
Well, yeah, so my kids obviously at 11 and 13 know and understand what's happening, and it's not different from what they've been experiencing since March. I think what I'm sort of noticing more and more in them is just the sadness. You know, they're not depressed per se, but they don't really have anything to look forward to. There's no anticipation for anything really. And I think it's just you know, they're okay day to day, and maybe they have a play date, but there's no beginning, middle, and end to their story right now. And I think that's, you know, as an adult, it's unpleasant. As a kid, where, you know, there's something that's popping every day for you, and that's where you're doing most of your learning anyway. It's just it's sad as a parent to see that. And I think the thing, especially now, seeing how this first wave has you know, taken off like wildfire everywhere, is because there really isn't a plan anywhere to do anything about this. I mean, apart from shutting down, we got nothing. So it's not like I expect it to get better. I don't know what the United States is going to do, but I don't expect it to get better. That's okay. And so that's, I think, the part that's, sorry. We're everybody's in everybody's rooms in our house. That's my husband. That's okay. So that's the part, I think, that it's just this never endingness of it. When are we ever going to take a trip again? When are we getting on an airplane again? When are we going to a restaurant again? You know, I think it's that flatness that goes beyond the absence of school that's impacting their lives. Mm-hmm. And I really don't, back to what we said earlier, I don't know if I even have the headspace to think about how to help them through that, mm-hmm. because I'm going through it myself. So,
yeah. Rebecca, do you want to go? You want to?
Sure. I, like Hannah, my kids, they were, when school first closed in March, they were, well, my first grader at the time, she was disappointed, but then was excited to get to see her class. They had a Zoom class every single morning, and so she was excited to get to at least see her friends. But now I think that has gotten kind of redundant, and she's not, I don't think, really looking forward to, it's not the same excitement start of the year that she's just going to see her friends on the computer. And so the sadness and the disappointment comes up probably almost every single day. She'll say something about, like, she's really sad that she doesn't get to see Ashlyn and Savannah, or she's really disappointed that she can't have friends over. And so as a parent, I've always been tempted to kind of, well, let's look on the bright side, and like, yeah, you haven't seen your friends in 5 months, but let's think of something great about this. But there isn't anything great about it. And so we're just kind of learning to be sad and disappointed together, and honor her and her sister's feelings of disappointment and loss, and that it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to just feel sad and not have to make yourself feel happy to get through it. And so it's been a lot of learning for me about my own feelings and how to help my kids be okay with feeling those feelings too.
Well, I think that's important too, because having young kids, a lot of this has been hard for them to understand. I mean, school at this age is so much just learning how to be social and learning how to, like, play with friends, and it's really hard to do that from a distance. And one of those things is learning how to be disappointed, but it's hard to learn to be disappointed when that's all there is to learn. There's not that, well, we still get to go play on the swing set with my best friend and everything like that. It's really difficult.
I think that the absence of excitement is such a loss for them. And we've done a few things to try to help bring it back. Like, for example, in our family, we don't eat fast food ever, really. And so, my husband took my daughter to KFC, and they're going to do a tour of all the fast food. I mean, it's nonsense, but it was somewhere to go. And so I think, if he's more creative than I am when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I think trying to find those, like, my daughter bakes all the time now, and she does complicated stuff where you have to make the toffee so I think they're trying to find something that pushes them a little bit, but they're hard to find. And often I'll say to my 11-year-old, who's very social, don't you want to see a friend today? Why don't you contact one of your friends? She's like, no, I'm okay, Mom. She's perfectly happy to be on YouTube if I let her all day, which is another bane of my existence, the whole screens. Every time you turn around, somebody's found a screen. So myself included. Okay.
I have two high school students. My son he's going to be a junior, and my daughter's actually going to college. She's going to be going to the University of Colorado, Denver. So she's pretty introverted. So when this whole thing started, she was fine. She was pretty happy with it. My son Justin, not as much, but he was happy not to go to school. So, but yeah, it's definitely taking its toll, I think, on both of them. This, even for my daughter, who's pretty introverted, she's really not seeing people really ever is really tough. She's excited to go to school. I'm worried about her getting sick, but she was going to go to school. It seems like the University of Colorado they've got plans in place just in case your child does get sick, and you can go visit them. And so, and fingers crossed, nothing will happen. She's on her own, very, very responsible and good about wearing a mask. So I'm hoping that she'll be around. She has her own room, but she's got a roommate in another room. There were supposed to be 4 in this area. Now there are 2. So everybody's sleeping in their own space. So it sounds like this other roommate that she's going to have sounds pretty level-headed. And so hopefully that'll work out. But you don't know what the rest of the kids in the dorms are doing. So, I'm definitely worried, and we're going to drive her up on the 9th and leave her there. So if anybody has any family friends in Denver, let me know. But and then my son, who's a junior, you know, he's bright, but it's not easy for him to be motivated about school. So school online is a disaster for him. It's hard to get him to work when he was going to school, but he was much more motivated. He really liked some of his teachers. But now with everything on the screen and they really didn't, he goes to a really good school. It's a charter school. Well, no, it's part of the public school system. But anyway, I don't think they transitioned well at all. And they just gave kids like a list of things to do. There's nothing live online. So he just did as little as possible. So I'm worried about him because he needs that interaction to stay motivated. So.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking about listening to you, Janice, and I know that this is what you do for a living as well, but it would seem to me that, you know, with all the genius that goes on at Google and Microsoft and Amazon here in Seattle, this is such a perfect opportunity for somebody somewhere to figure this out and to offer options of curriculums for various grades and various types. And I know Khan Academy has courses, but nothing is stitched together. It's always, you know, one course or one piece. And I think, you know, the problem we have, what I do for a living is like doing innovation and design thinking and that kind of work. And when I think about the problem, there's a gazillion solutions to this. We can't come up with it on our own necessarily, but for the richest country in the world not to be able to provide compelling, interesting, coherent education to their kids it's crazy to me that it feels like we live in a second world country when you look at how stumped we are. Mm-hmm. And how each individual person has to use their energy to put together something specific for their kids, because there should be a menu. Your kids in 6th grade, or do they like this? Do they like that? Or do they, you know, here's the community that they're in. Here's the kids they can connect with. Let's do it.
I personally think, I think companies and technology companies, and I come from a software background, so I'm all for technology. I think it's got its place, but I think people just have it totally wrong. I think that if we have to stay at home rather than sticking kids in front of a technology solution for each different subject, I think we should just have a camera on the teacher in a classroom and just teach the class. And the kids could listen to the 40-minute class and she would just do one lesson plan, keep it like.
That's what the private schools do. They just teach
the class. I mean, that way the kids can all see each other on the screen. It might not be as productive as if they're in school, but it's not that productive in a class anyway. So but the idea that a child can sit in front of a computer day in and day out, I just don't understand how people think that is even possible. So, you know, I think if it was more, maybe it was a little more virtual reality or something, but I really just think the teachers need to stay in the classroom and kids watch them. At least I think that would make more sense, at least short term, until we learned a little bit more, but I don't know.
Go ahead.
I've always thought that our schools were way too large. And I think this is an example of yet another problem of a too large school, because if our schools were smaller, we'd have an easier time sending kids back because they'd be coming from smaller neighborhoods. And it would be easier. I mean, you know, if you go all the way, I'm not advocating for a one-room schoolhouse, but one-room schoolhouse, you wouldn't have to shut all the schools in that kind of a situation. And I wish we'd be thinking creatively like that, like maybe have more mixed age classes so that you can have more in-person instruction without so many households coming and going.
Mm-hmm. I also think, well, I know here, I felt like at least for the younger children, schools didn't take advantage of parents that were really capable of just helping out without, without needing to be paid. You know, I think that there are quite a few parents that could actually get a lot done and help out and help like spread the kids out in ways like by using playgrounds or just spacing out. But I don't think that the schools always tend to me, seem to want to keep the parents away rather than just train, take a little time in the beginning, train them, tell them what they can and can't do, keep the good parents, supporting the school. But
our school does involve parents really well. We live somewhere where we could have outdoor school, and I'm like, let's do that, but they haven't done it yet. I do think, in fairness to the schools, having been a teacher, I know that we thought that this would be over. We didn't think we'd still be here. And that was what we were being told. We were being told, we'll get this under control in 3 weeks, and then a month, and then 3 months.
Sure.
And now it's out of control for an indeterminate amount of time, unless I really hope this vaccine works. But I think, in fairness to the schools, we weren't told this is a long-term problem.
True.
And so we threw a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah. And schools weren't designed for this. So.
But the one thing that I often in the work that I need to do have to learn new content, because somebody will ask me to do a project on something and I don't know anything about it. And I don't have time to read with everything going on. So while I'm washing dishes, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll watch a TED Talk or a YouTube video. And I find that I absorb so much in those, if it's presented by somebody who knows what they're talking about in a well thought through, presentation, I take away a lot from that. And I think, blending what you guys are saying of it should be the classroom or it shouldn't be technology, it's probably a hybrid. But if we're going to do a hybrid, it should be the very, very, if they're in front of a computer, they should be watching something compelling and well produced and interesting. And if they're working with a teacher, they should be working with a teacher who is able to work through this medium and connect with them. And so there's a part of me that is wishing for a little bit of excellence so that they know what good looks like, because that's the other thing that I worry about, is that they don't understand, what they're going to have to be good at by the time, like my son is 13 and he likes nice things. And he's, interested in doing well. And I try to make the connection with him. If you don't want to do your math, you're not going to Wall Street, or, it doesn't work like that. And so just showing them what the bar is and what they need to be interested in trying to achieve, and by modeling people who do it well, is something else I think we should be exposing them to if they're not going to school. So that would be if we had time to do it. The programs that documentary example, like sometimes I'd really luck out and find this one about these kids from Claremont McKenna who were studying poverty, and they went to Guatemala to live on $1 a day, and it was super intense for them, and they filmed it, and it was just fascinating, and I could tell my kids were moved. And then the next day we watched, a Jane Goodall one, and that was great. And then the day after that, it was one that didn't work for them, and then they didn't want to watch documentaries anymore. And so it's the luck of the draw. But I'm just saying, if somebody else could curate, then I would be interested in looking to see what people think is interesting for kids and not just, here's one app for this and one app for that, so I have to piece it together. But something that's a little more, that's your next business, Janice.
One thing we're seeing is that we haven't prioritized we haven't made teaching a competitive profession in the United States, and we are really seeing the fallout from that. You have some really incredible teachers, but you have a lot of teachers who weren't trained well enough and certainly aren't paid well enough for what they're expected to do. And they just get completely burnt out. And we need to treat education like the way we treat, I live in Silicon Valley. If we treated teachers the way we treated startup companies, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Exactly.
Rebecca, so Becca was a teacher, and I taught. So Becca, what do you have to add to that?
I just want to say amen. That's so true.
Yeah.
And in Arizona, especially, teachers are underappreciated. And I know teachers have been really frustrated with some of the comments from people saying you need to just get back to the classroom and teach, and you just need to do your job. And if you're too scared, then just quit and we'll replace you with someone else. And all of the teachers are thinking, who are you going to replace us with? Because we had like hundreds of classrooms last year with a sub the entire school year because there was no teacher available for that class. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, I think, seeing how low a priority education has been in a lot of states. And then the expectation that schools should just be there, but but people aren't drawing the connections between, we haven't prioritized schools and now we're expecting all of this from teachers, but we haven't given them the support or the materials or anything that they need to actually do that. And so
I think for me, this is what COVID has exposed, is all the weaknesses in our society. So education and healthcare and policing and, you know, everything that we knew was kind of broken, but we could just continue on our way. When the whole system, you know, disintegrates basically, and underneath the top layer, there's more that's broken. I think it really is a time of reckoning for, you know, all the things that need to be fixed and rebuilt, basically.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're
that positive note.
we're seeing all the broken and inadequate systems colliding.
Exactly.
Now.
Exactly. I mean, you listen. I mean, you guys are, some of you are living in the hotspot areas, and I'm sure Washington isn't too far behind. And we had the riots in Seattle yesterday, and which is a whole other story. But I think there's just so many fissures that are being exposed. So it's not a single dimensional problem. Then there's going to be the, you know, the economic fallout and the poverty and the homelessness. And so, you know.
There are some people doing really great stuff. I mean, I was teaching and I had organizations who came out and they said, here's a grant to mail supplies, because I was teaching in a very low income school. And I got a grant to mail supplies to my kids. I got a grant to buy online curriculum, and I found some teachers on Teachers Pay Teachers who had created some distance learning curriculum that I bought, because, you know, I had to throw out I was a band and choir and orchestra teacher. I couldn't teach that online. I had to rewrite my entire curriculum, and I was able to get some support, and I was able to find some resources. So there are people,
yeah,
you know, to be hopeful. There are people who are making a difference here.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have people donating hotspots to my students, and we have people donating their time to, you know, come organize computers to get to students. We have people donating laptops. So there's some good stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer, I'll be quiet.
No, I mean, no, you're right, Han. I mean, we're all going through this stuff, and you know, we all live in different areas. You know, we all have different, definitely different resources and stuff like that. And just, I think we're all doing we're all doing the best that we can. And I feel like just hearing other people talk about their situation, to me personally, is really, really helpful. You know, but whether it's similar or different, it's just kind of nice to hear other people. Honestly, it's nice to hear other people complain. So you just feel kind of normal, because, you know, we're all going through the same stuff. So
I really appreciate Hannah saying, you know, this is just showing us all the things that are wrong, but, you know, maybe it's past time for us to notice.
So past, yes. And I think, you know, the realization that we all have to have, that nobody's going to fix it for us. You know, the generation that are up there in the they're done now, and now it's for us to try to get it in place so that our kids that we're supposed to be showing them what good looks like can actually come and finish the job. But I don't know how many of us really walk around understanding that because we think about, we have our own jobs and we have our own lives, and the culture here is all about. And I think that's what this pandemic has exposed in the United States as well, is that this notion of collective community and taking care of each other is maybe not as inherent as people expected. And so it's such a realization that, holy, you know, there's a lot of work to do here, because it doesn't work the way we want it to. And when the whole thing collapses, So I think that's, I mean, it's what the kids need to do for school, but it's also how we find our own voices and, you know, where do we put our energy, and I'm sure everybody thinks about that too, but there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
It really is.
Listen, I wanna be sensitive to all your days, your Sundays, let you get back to
Time
your
for my
families.
nap.
And I just want to thank you all so much for being here and for participating and sharing, you know,
Thanks for
some,
putting it together. It was
Yeah.
therapeutic.
there's, you know, there are a lot of sensitive topics and you shared a lot of, you know, personal things. So I really appreciate that. I hope that people will listen to this and get something out of it. I know I would if I were listening to it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday. And would you all join me in a few weeks if we do this again, or not necessarily on a Sunday? So is Sunday a good day for everybody?
Every day is a good day for everybody. I've got nothing
School's
on my
gonna be back
calendar
soon.
ever.
School's gonna be back soon. Our kid's gonna be like sort of in school. So maybe is Sunday good for everybody?
Sunday works for me.
Okay, great. So maybe I'll send out an email to everybody in this group for like maybe in like another 3 weeks or something. And if you have a friend that has another perspective that wants to join us, please, by all means, share the link. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.